Thank you, everyone, for coming. We're pleased to have you. We're excited about this event. This is our first event of 2020, and I should say what we are. My fellow colleagues, Margaret and myself, my name is Shannon, and our committee members in the back there, please wave. Everybody knows the committee. We are the University Library's Free Speech Movement Café Educational Programs Committee. And our mission is to sponsor and present programs that are timely, informative, and compelling, and that stimulate discussion on issues that matter, and that exemplify the spirit of critical engagement of Berkeley's free speech movement. Our programs are designed to engage and engender debate and discussion among students, faculty, staff, and visitors alike. That's our official sort of mission statement. And each year we put on different events throughout the year, a couple every semester, try to get student groups involved. So if any of you want to put on an event with us, let us know. Or if you know friends, we have money every fiscal year for new events, so keep that in mind. Margaret is going to introduce one of the fellow students here who has agreed to do a land acknowledgement. And then we'll move on to our introductions, and we'll have our screening, and then our panelists will come back to the stage. Thank you.
So Michael Serdahara will do our land acknowledgement.
All right, hello, everyone. Thanks for being here today. Before we get started, I'm going to go ahead and do a land acknowledgement. The Free Speech Movement Café education program recognizes that Berkeley sits on land that was and continues to be of great importance to the Ohlone people. We recognize that every member of the Berkeley community has and continues to benefit from the use and occupation of this land since the institution's founding in 1868. By offering this land acknowledgement, we affirm indigenous sovereignty and will work to hold the University of California, Berkeley more accountable to the needs of American Indian and indigenous peoples.
So the order of events for tonight is we're going to have a screening of the film and followed by a panel. So on the panel will be Azadeh Zohrabi, raise your hand and wave, who is the executive director of the Berkeley Undergrounds Scholars. David Harding, who is a professor in the Department of Sociology and the author of a 2019 book titled On the Outside, Prisoner Reentry and Reintegration. Joining them on the panel will be some scholars themselves, Jessie Fernandez, Daniela Medina, and Lanika Pendergrass. Where are you? Great. And then to introduce the film is Skylar Economy. Skylar is a filmmaker whose work focuses on the criminal justice system, and she directed this film from incarceration to education during her senior year at UC Berkeley, and has since screened this film in prisons, jails, and youth detention centers in college campuses around the country. So please join me in welcoming Skylar.
Thank you. I'm Skylar, and as she said, I directed Fight Film, and we started working on this in 2015 with Clarence, Juanita, Richard, and David, who isn't here, and Danny, and Steve, and everyone else in USI, or BUS, USI at the time. And we have just been holding screenings, and it's been awesome to see BUS grow across California and just how everyone in the organization has really impacted so many people. And through this film and through the screenings, we've seen that firsthand, whether it's in prison, in jails, or at college campuses. And without further ado, I will let you show the film, and happy to answer any questions afterwards. Thank you.
We have about 20 minutes for Q&A, and we have some of the stars of the film here in the room.
I have a question. So this has not been edited since October 2017, and I would like Clarence, Shalita, and is Richard here? Richard's here. If they can both, or if all of them can just say what they're up to now, and then also, yeah, just life updates. Oh, yes. Stand up and...
What's up, everyone? Again, my name is Clarence Ford. So I came here in 2014. I got my BA in American Studies, graduated 2016, went straight to grad school to get my master's in public policy, graduated 2018, and thank you. Since then, I've been working with an organization called the W. Haywood Burns Institute. We're based here in Oakland, but we work nationally across the country in local jurisdictions. And what we do is we aim to eliminate racial and ethnic disparities in local jurisdictions, right? And one of the ways in which we do that is, so we have 3 different departments, right? We have our policy department, we have our site managers, and we have our grassroots organizers, right? So I work specifically in the policy department. And what I do day to day is like kind of the boring stuff, like the number crunching, but intentionally looking at racial and ethnic disparities, like comparing what are the rates or what are the proportions that black people and brown people are being locked up compared to white people, right? Because a lot of these organizations, they don't like intentionally look at that stuff, right? And then we have our grassroots organizers, and what they do is they go in there, and I feel like they empower communities, right? They especially coach up like people who've been formerly incarcerated in different areas across the country to build them up and be their own leaders and address their own issues, right? And also getting formerly incarcerated people to the table, right? To have a say in how these decisions are made, right? Because that's what's important. And then our site managers, I like to think of them as like the quarterbacks. So what they do is they pretty much convene these different stakeholders, these criminal justice actors like the DA, the judges, probation officers, and not only just them, but system impacted people, and convene them and facilitate these meetings to help come up with some good solutions, right? So that's kind of much what I've been up to now. That and trying to pay off my student debt, and yeah, that's about it. Thank you.
Hi. Oh, I'm so close to my mouth. Hi, I'm Shalita Williams. Well, I guess you could tell I'm like a half a person down since that video. I've been watching that video. I'm like, damn, look at that ass. Like, huge. No, but anyway, since I graduated since then, I have my bachelor's in sociology. I went on to work in the San Francisco County Jail for 5 keys as a college enrollment specialist. And it was a pretty good job working with my people. That's all I miss about the job, is working with my people. That's all I miss. I don't like the commute and all and the other stuff that was going on, the politics with the sheriffs and the other program staffs and all these power dynamics. I didn't like that at all. And I quit my job for good reason. So now I am a social welfare student up here at UC Berkeley. And I am a APS stipend winner, which is Adult Protective Services winner. And it's like the Title IV for child protective workers. What they do is pay for your tuition. So they've been paying for my tuition. And I'm obligated to intern for a year and to work 2 years as Adult Protective Services worker with APS after I graduate. And what I plan to do, hopefully, is to become, what I'm going to do is become a licensed clinical social worker and have my own practice and continue working with those coming home of all ages, and hopefully be able to offer resources, because they're passing all these policies and all these bills and these laws, specifically letting people come home that's been served at least 10 or more years and just dropping them off and just like, okay, now go fend for yourself, and with no resources. And like, you lost out here. This world is crazy. Imagine being in jail like just a few years and coming home. But after, more than, it's just horrible anyway. But they're just dropping people off and just not giving them no type of resources. So I want to be able to offer those resources and help them become productive, however they want to become productive in a positive way, and not to return back to jail. And then eventually I want to apply for my PhD. But I'm like, yes, I'm gonna do that. Boom.
Yeah, so my name is Richard Rodriguez Leon. I technically was supposed to graduate in 2018, but I didn't have my shit together, didn't know what I wanted to do. So, counselors here are pretty tight. I was in the ethnic studies department. It was like, yo, you're not unit capped. If you don't do this class, you could stay an extra year. I said, bet. So then I technically graduated in 2019, right? So since then, I'm currently working in a middle school as a teacher. So I'm in Elmhurst Middle School, or United Middle School in Deep East Oakland. So yeah, so talk about people with a lot of impact. Like, this is Deep East Oakland, you know what I'm saying? So they need a lot of support. A lot of students, they don't have that much support. I'm I'm technically not under OUSD, so I have hella leeway to do whatever I want. So I work through the Unity Council as a Latino men and boys academic and career mentor. But that means I could create my own curriculum and teach them shit that they want to learn, right? So I go into the classroom, I'm like, what do you want to know? What interests you? And from that, I develop curriculum that's, culturally appropriate and what they want to know, instead of like, yo, this is what you need to learn because it's A through G requirement. I could do whatever I want. So they actually love my class, and it's not the other teachers' fault that they have to teach, due to the state requirement. But everywhere they see me, they're like, yo, like, hey, Mr. Richard, like, I'm ready to go to your class. So I don't use my last name. So they call me Richard or Richie. So, yeah. And then the other thing, so when I only have 2 classes. When I'm not in my classes, I go and help them out in their other classes, or they have a lot of behavior issues because I have the most need students. So they have like behavioral issues, academic issues, a lot of things that come up. So I always have to go and support them in other classes. Like, these fools are always on their phones and they're not supposed to. So they'll be like, last time they were like, yo, are you close by? Because one of them, we just sent him out because he doesn't want to give his cell phone. He said he'll only give it to you. And I was on my way for food, and I was like, I'll be there in 10 minutes. I was on lunch. I was like, all right, bet, I'll turn back. So I told him he can't do that again because next time I'm going to give it to the office. And I know why he finessed it. So if you give it to the office, a parent has to pick it up. But he gave it to me, and he knew I would give it back after class. So I told him he can't be messing with my lunch like that. So I'm going to turn it to the office next time. So that's what I'm doing. I'm a middle school teacher in Deep East Oakland, but I do plan. So this has set me up in a way. So I thought I wanted to teach, but not actually being in the classroom with them. Not in that way, though. So the impact that the teacher has, I thought was bigger, but it's not when you have to teach, the state requirements. You don't have that much leeway in actually having one-on-ones with the students. So I see that they have a big relationship with me when I've only been there for a couple of weeks versus teachers they've had for 2 years, because the teacher doesn't have enough time they have to teach the requirements, right? And can't know them one-to-one. So instead of getting my master's with teaching credentials, I'm going to go and get it into counseling work, because counselors could spend more time and actually build relationships. So it wasn't that they're bad, you know what I'm saying? They do be wilding when I was there, but when I began, I was like, oh, like, do I want to come back tomorrow? But they were throwing chairs and shit. I was like, yo, these fools are wild. But I was like, I got to remember where I'm at, meet them where they at, right? So now they listen, and they listen to me better than everybody else, but only because I'm able to spend that extra time and build those relationships. So master's in counseling work not this fall, but next fall.
Hello, everyone. My name is Benny Gutierrez, and I just want to commend everybody for all their hard work, coming from where we come from. I was incarcerated a little over a year ago. I was in contact with Underground Scholars while I was locked up. They looked at my transcripts. As soon as I got out, I went to, I'm from Chico, to the local community college right there. Okay. Oh, you want to, okay. Visuals. And I hit the ground running, and it's because of this program. I was fortunate enough to start a club on campus last semester called Underground Scholars. Look at me biting on you guys. We're ascending scholars because no one would lend us their name. I just wanted a franchise, I wanted someone's constitution, but I brought 3 of us here tonight. There's Deshaun there. There's Alex, our club president, Jeremy somewhere. Last week, we were fortunate enough to speak in front of faculty, in front of probation, sheriff's department, and a bunch of juvenile hall kids. And I couldn't keep it together. I'm so proud of everybody. For look where we're at, right? So we just made the trip up here or down here, to be with you guys in fellowship. And I just want to say I appreciate the space. Thank you.
I was actually released from prison July the 19th of 2019. I had been incarcerated for 13 years. I went in when I was 15 years old, all right? I was trying to escape a psychologically abusive household. My mother told me that I would die before I was an adult. So I know they protect you in prison. I committed a senseless crime so I can get locked up, and I found out through growth and development, a lot of children like me try to escape the wrong way. So I appreciate you guys. hopefully I can come to Berkeley. All right.
Okay. If we don't have any other questions for Skylar and her guests, then we'll have the panelists come up to the front and we'll. I have a question. Oh, please.
Skylar, can you tell us a little bit about what you're working on now?
Yeah, so we've all discussed this, but we kind of want to do a 10-year gap in between this film and a feature-length film and show Clarence, Shalita, Richard, David, and Violetta, whoever else is in the film, and current students as well, but just like their lives 10 years after this film was made, and now they're in jobs like Clarence. Clarence. But to see that, like, you know, even with a PhD, even with a master's degree, you still have barriers being formerly incarcerated. And what are those barriers, and how can we as a society fix this? And basically that will be a feature-length film. So this released in 2012, or no, not 2012, 2017. So look out for something in 2027. But yeah, we're in the process of that. And I had one actually question for Richard, Shalita, and Clarence, but we've screened a lot in prisons and jails, and I'm just curious what your perspective is going back and screening this film and how, like, what you've seen from that.
I always got to start first. I don't know. It's been kind of nostalgic for me, just looking at the journey. Because when I got here, I sort of hit the ground running, and I feel like I haven't really reflected on all that. So this film always is a great reminder and also a powerful tool, because I noticed the difference, like when we do the panel, when we do the film screenings at schools versus people that are incarcerated, and like the warmth and like the love and the inspiration that comes from the people that are in jail lets me know, like, this film is it. Like, these are the stories that need to be told, right? All that other propaganda that you see out there, like, that ain't it. Like, these stories need to be uplifted. I even had like some of the correctional guards come up to me. It was like, oh man, that's what's up. I didn't know people could do that. But, you know, I'm like, yeah, bro, it's just like, I mean, it's just the culture that you're in. You know, you just gotta, you know, meet people and see what's out there. But yeah, it's always wonderful to come back and speak to this. Oh.
Well, I like the fact how inspirational this film was for a lot of the prisoners and a lot of people that are still incarcerated, because I remember one time we was filming it at showing at CJ5, which is County Jail 5 in San Francisco, where the men are located. And I remember the part when I was talking about how my father used to always tell me I'm not that pretty and this and that. And after the film was over, that video was like, you know what, you're beautiful and you're this. And they started giving me all type of affirmations and, you know, uplifting me and building me up, you know, as a community. And I was like, but it uplifted them also too, because when I went back, I eventually started working there. And when I went back and someone was like, oh, I remember you. I want to go to Berkeley. How can I get in? You know, what's the Underground Scholars? How can I write them? And, you know, I started giving them information and the address and who to contact. In regards to the letter writing program. But yeah, it was very inspirational. I know there's a few of them that is applying to Berkeley or trying to get into Berkeley. And, you know, it's one young lady, Miss Perkins. I know she might be writing, but she's going to come here soon. She's probably out of prison by now. She's working on it. So, yeah.
I mean, for me, I love going there all the time because they fuck with me the toughest. They do. Clarence knows. Nah, I keep it real with them, you know what I'm saying? So I answer questions that, you know, might seem problematic to the staff and other folks, but I keep it real with them. So they'll be like, how's it like up there? How's school? So I let them know, it's like, you know, like, you got to be careful when you're out here, because I seen more drugs here on college campus than in my hood. So I let them know the real shit, you know what I'm saying? Like, they ask real things, so I let them know for real what it is. So just things like that, you know, and also there's some folks that I gave them my personal number when we were in Quentin, and someone be calling me from cell phones, you know what I'm saying? So But they just be asking me things about school though, like, yo, like how these are the classes I'm taking, what am I doing? So I do that on my own time, you know what I'm saying? But I gave them my number, so circulating in there, so now I just answer and I'm like, yo, I'm whispering right now because I'm on lockdown. And I'm like, all right, well, what's good? What you need, bro? So yeah, don't give out your personal number, maybe. Yeah.
All right, well, thank you to Skylar and our guests from the film. And I think now we will have our panelists come up to the seats, please.
Thank you everyone for being here this evening. I'm really excited to do this event. We haven't done a big campus event in a really long time. Before we get started, I want to acknowledge some of the people that are in the audience because this program is a movement and it takes a lot of people to make this happen. So if you're our staff for our program, raise your hand, give it up for our staff. Thank you, volunteers. If you're former staff, any of our former staff, former directors, shout out to Violetta, Shalita, Stephen, Froggy. What about graduates? Do we have any graduates in the building? Shout out to our graduates. Yeah, this is a movement. It's taken a movement to make this happen. A lot of people have mentioned our incarcerated scholars. This program is here to build a prison to university pipeline. So I also want to bring the incarcerated scholars into the room, the ones who are overcoming all kinds of barriers and challenges just to make sure that they're getting their education and persevering despite all the legal barriers that are intended to stop them while they're in prison and even after they come home. So wanted to bring them into the room. Wanted to thank Lonnie Hancock and Tom Bates, who are in the building, who have been longtime supporters of Underground Scholars and really instrumental in making sure that we were institutionalized here at UC Berkeley. So thank you so much for your continued support. And Skylar and all the students that were featured in the film, thank you so much. This film has been such a great organizing tool and communications tool, not only about our program, but about what's possible when people access higher education, when they're incarcerated and when they come home. One of the biggest reflections for me watching the film was how many of the community college students that were at Transfer Empowerment Day are now current students at UC Berkeley. A lot of the students in the film that were community college students are actually with us now at UC Berkeley, and I even recognized a few that are leading chapters at other UC campuses. And the student that David was grading and advising, she's in her second semester here now too. So we do have a lot of continuity. We're making sure that we continue. Shout out to Benny and the team from Butte College, drove 2-3 hours to get here. He's also one of our community college ambassadors. We hire about 20 community college students to be a touch point for our program at their colleges. We have a lot of really strong recruitment, retention, and advocacy programs on campus and beyond, digging deep into the community colleges, deep into the prison system. I want to shout out Angela and Sammy, our two staff that run the Incarcerated Scholars program. Yes. They're not here right now because they're in the office interviewing our next crop of interns who make sure that every single letter that we get from incarcerated students is responded to, and we get dozens every week, and they get back to them in great detail. So want to shout them out. And then our faculty advisors. We have a great team of faculty advisors at UC Berkeley, Dr. Harding included, who really help our students in many, many, many different ways and help our program. We have a lot of great partnerships on campus, including partnerships with admissions and the financial aid office and the counseling and psychological services. Stiles Hall is our home, so shout out to Stiles Hall for giving us space. Yeah. So we're here. I'm going to talk a little bit about Underground Scholars, the history and the development. We're going to hear from Dr. Harding on his research related to the issues that Underground Scholars face, but also how he's been able to engage Underground Scholars in conducting their own research. And then most importantly, we'll hear from some of our Underground Scholars about their experiences getting to UC Berkeley and what it means to them to be an Underground Scholar. So as you saw in the film, Underground Scholars started off as a student org. In about 2000, 2012, 2013, when some students who made it here after long terms of incarceration kind of found each other and decided that they wanted to build community together. They started with a small group of formerly incarcerated and system impacted students, started partnering and speaking with some faculty members, did a lot of organizing on their own on campus to be able to generate resources to develop an actual program. They developed all the programming themselves. So when we talk about our cross-enrollment program where community college students can take a class at UC Berkeley, that was developed by the formerly incarcerated students who started Underground Scholars. Our transfer program where we support community college students in applying to UC Berkeley was started by our formerly incarcerated students. In 2019, our acceptance rate for the students that we supported with the transfer application was over 70%. And if you know about UC Berkeley's transfer numbers, they're under 30% for transfer applicants. So we're really excited about the work that the students have been able to generate in terms of building that prison to university pipeline. During the course of the first few years that they were on campus operating as a student organization, Lonnie Hancock, who I mentioned before, helped us secure funding from the state to actually make it a program at UC Berkeley. And that's when we established the Berkeley Undergrounds Scholars in addition to the Underground Scholars Initiative, which was the student org. That helped strengthen our programs, that helped hire more staff, and we really started sharing the model. As you saw in the film, UCLA had an Underground Scholars Initiative chapter first. They were the first UC that kind of adopted the model. Now Underground Scholars at UCLA is not just a student org, but they're about to launch their official program, the Bruin Underground Scholars. They've allocated a portion of a staff person's time to doing that. So now we have 2 UC programs. We have formerly incarcerated students at UC Riverside, UC Irvine, UC Santa Barbara, UC Santa Cruz, UC San Diego, and UC Davis, who are starting Underground Scholars Initiative chapters. I think that by the end of the year, we'll be at every UC. We are on the verge of getting statewide UC funding from the regents. Yes. They've included a budget ask for Underground Scholars in the budget that they submitted to the governor this year. So we have a lot of advocacy and a lot of organizing to do to make sure that budget ask gets approved. But if it does, then by the end of this year or early next year, we could have full programs like Underground Scholars at every UC campus, serving all of the whole state of California. So we're really excited about what that means for our ability to work with more community college students and reach deeper inside the prisons now that we'll have more capacity throughout the state. We've also strengthened our Incarcerated Scholars program. As I mentioned, it's no longer just a letter writing program. We're really working on developing specific resources and tools and information for incarcerated scholars and spending a lot more time going into the prison. Some of the students here have gone into prisons to do workshops with us. Michael's going at the end of this month to Pelican Bay again for the third year to do a workshop there. So we're trying to make sure our presence is felt throughout the state, and we're excited about that growth. So with that, I will hand it over to our panel to speak. So I think we'll start with Dr. Harding, and then maybe we can go from Daniela to Lanika to Jessie.
Okay, well, thanks everyone for having me and for the opportunity to participate in this really interesting event, and congratulations to Skylar and everyone who's involved in the film for such a fantastic piece of work. So I guess my role sort of evolved over time to working with some of the students in Underground Scholars who were interested in doing research. And that was really driven by their interest. And I've actually learned a lot from working with them. We started a few years ago, gradually built up, and the traditional model of professors working with undergrads and research is usually the professor designs the project and then hands some tasks off to the undergraduates, enter this data, or go do this survey or something like that. We used a kind of different model where the students really drive the research questions and come up with the important questions and really out of their own lived experiences, right? So we've looked at a lot of what we focused on so far is the prospect of finding employment after college for someone with a criminal record, the capacity or the capacity to find work in the public sector as someone with a criminal record. And so we're kind of in the process of taking some of that research and trying to get it out there into the public as reports and policy briefs and things like that. I guess I'd also like to talk a little bit about some of the existing research on reintegration and reentry of formerly incarcerated people, and really kind of zoom out a little bit and provide a little bit of context for what we've seen so far. So I'll talk about that context and then maybe a little bit about what we can do to improve access to college for the formerly incarcerated. So the way I like to think about this is, a lot of people talk about prisoner reentry, but I think we should really think about it as reintegration. So how can we bring people back into society to become full participants in the economy, our community, our religious and cultural institutions, our political institutions, getting involved in civic life. And what we found from our research is that success depends, of course, in part on what the individual brings, but more importantly on the contexts and institutions that people find themselves in after they come home. And if we look at those contexts generally across many people who have been formerly incarcerated, they're not always very nurturing or developmental contexts. As we saw, neighborhoods where there's a lot of crime, not a lot of opportunities for work. Of course, the criminal justice system is an ever-present force, monitoring, surveilling. The low-wage labor market is incredibly challenging. Many people don't have families to support them. But if we think about college in this process, it's really like the one institution that is almost solely developmentally focused, right? How can we prepare people for the future? And so it really is, in some ways, for our set of institutions and contexts, the one that's kind of going to be most useful. And so I think that's why the Underground Scholars story and the Underground Scholars work is so important, and why the film is so important. To zoom out a little bit, I do want us to remember that most formerly incarcerated college students are at community colleges. Not everybody makes it to a place like Berkeley yet. We need to put more processes in place to increase those opportunities. But even at community colleges, where most folks come through at the beginning, those can broaden people's horizons, as we saw in the film, have them see new possibilities, learn concrete skills, and broaden our social networks and social sources of support, as we also saw in the film, and develop new identities, find new roles, and as Richard sort of spoke eloquently about in the film, find a new sort of social support, a new social space. It does turn out that we found there's not a lot of research, honestly, on formerly incarcerated college students. The research we've done, we found out that over a quarter of those who were released from prison before the age of 25 actually end up going to college at some point. And so that's a very large group of people. Most of them don't go right away. Unfortunately, they often kind of have to work up to it. So what could we do, is the last sort of thing I'll say, what could we do to kind of improve access to college based on the research that's been done so far? I think we need more things like USI and Berkeley Undergrounds Scholars. We need more comprehensive and robust support systems to help people through the process of understanding the college process. Even things like, how do you construct the right sequence of classes to get through most efficiently, and so on. We need to make college more affordable. It's one thing to say that tuition is taken care of, but the cost of college is a lot more than just tuition, as everybody knows, right? You have to be able to have the time to study. So we could be doing more things, especially in community colleges, around what are called earn and learn programs, apprenticeship programs. We could be creating more. There's an idea of the stackable curriculum where we could create certifications along the way to help people sort of get some classes, get a certification, get a better job, and sort of create a kind of virtuous cycle to get them through. I think another thing we could be doing, and I know the Underground Scholars policy team is working on, is increasing access to financial aid so that people who are incarcerated can get access to financial aid. And that's important not just for that individual person who's going to get the financial aid and be able to do college work while they're in jail or prison, but if that comes to scale, then we create a kind of critical mass of people who are on the inside who have the ability to pay for college. And then we're going to see a whole lot of institutions come in, particularly community colleges, and start creating more and more programs, right? So we can end up with another kind of virtuous cycle there. And we need to, improve the institutionalized pathways to college, right? So people shouldn't have to sort of figure out how to navigate this. There should be clear pathways of things that you need to do. And one way we can do this is have kind of a prison to school pipeline, right? So imagine if you're taking community college classes and you're acquiring credits and working your way through the curriculum. You get out, you should be able to just sort of continue with that same educational institution, the same set of courses, that same sort of coursework right when you come out, right? And prevent that delay that we see in the data that I saw earlier. So we could really take the model of what is called in the medical realm is called continuity of care, and we could have continuity of education and really create that pipeline. So I'll stop there and let's hear from the scholars.
What's the question? Just anything. Question. We're gonna do Q&A at the end.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my experience, I'm Danielle, everybody. My experience is I was incarcerated for 10 years. And during that time, my first 3 years I was in the county jail, and that's where I received my GED. So very thankful for like the programming inside of the county jail where I had like, was able to be a part of a program where I was able to complete my GED. Once I was in prison, then it was really hard to get access to education. There was a lot of budget cuts, so it took me a few years before I was able to access college courses. So once I was able to access college courses, I think I had been incarcerated maybe 7 years, maybe 6.5, 7 years. And I was one of the lucky people that was able to take a correspondence courses through Feather River College. And Feather River College is up in Quincy, and all of their college courses are transferable. So basically every single class that I took was transferable. I didn't know what that meant at the time, so I was taking classes and they assured me that I would be able to transfer. I think it was in my somewhere in the middle of like completing my AA that the director, she was the director of the incarcerated student program. She told me and my friend, who's also out here at Berkeley now, but told us that they were transferable and that we can go to UC Berkeley. And I had no idea that I was gonna one day be able to go to UC Berkeley. But she also told me about a program. I don't even know if it was called Underground Scholars, but she said there are formerly incarcerated students at UC Berkeley, and there's some type of group. And so that day I decided that I was going to go to UC Berkeley. And so from that moment on, I just made sure I did really good in school, and I just had like that kind of light at the end of the tunnel for me was UC Berkeley. So I just worked really hard to make sure I didn't know how to do it or how I was going to get in or what the process was or if I was going to get in with the record. I mean, I had no answers to any of those questions, but I knew that there were other formerly incarcerated people there. So I knew that it was a possibility. So when I came home with my AA, and somebody gave me an email to Danny Murillo, who was one of the founders, and I reached out to him, and then I took the BART up here when they had a small, tiny little closet space somewhere called the Old Styles Hall, and I came in, and I was super scared, and Danny was all stressed out because it was finals, so that really discouraged me. But so I came home with the intention of going to Berkeley, like I'm going to transfer, I'm going to apply, but I got really overwhelmed. I knew it wasn't that easy. I had to get a job. So I think the one main thing that Underground Scholars supported me with at that time was that they didn't give up on me when I was like, I'm not ready. Like, I can't do this right now. They weren't like, oh, she's not ready, forget her. They kind of just understood that I needed to like acclimate and like re-enter. They gave me my time and still invited me. So anytime they had events like this, they invited me. So I was like building community before I would ever had applied. So I worked for 2 years, and then after 2 years, I went through the transfer program. And thanks to my transfer coordinator, Caleb, who was also formerly incarcerated, super supportive. Every time I wanted to quit, because I kept trying to save myself from being rejected. So I tried to quit and say, oh, I can't, I gotta work. So shout out to Caleb, who's now studying law school at UC Irvine. You know, having that support of other formerly incarcerated people really motivated me. So then I came here. I graduated here in May with bachelor's in social welfare. And now I'm a first year master's in social welfare student here at UC Berkeley. That's it.
Hi, everybody. My name is Lanika. I'm a transfer student here at UC Berkeley, formerly incarcerated, sociology major. Thank you all. You guys are so kind. I'm also working on my senior honors thesis, finishing up here with Fernando, I think Juan. I don't know if he's here, but a few of us are in the working in our senior honors thesis. My research is similar to Shalita's work, which my work is going to be looking at how Black women access supportive services who have experienced intimate partner violence and how state violence impacts that experience. I'm also an Elder Freeman Policy Fellow with Underground Scholars. So, which is a new policy fellowship that was created, or a joint partnership that Azadeh collaborated with All of Us or None. So that's just a little bit about what's going on with me right now. I did some time in federal prison, and once I came home, it was just like, all hell had broke loose because I'm also a parent. And so my daughter, who was a teenager at the time, she had got involved in, she was a sexually exploited minor. So, I began to think differently, like, I need to go to school, or I need to do something different, because this cycle that I'm seeing is just not, working out for me. Be seeing that my mother did time in prison, and then, me doing time in prison and looking at my daughter. So I just felt like, I don't know what I'm going to go to school for or what I'm going to do when I get to school. But there's, something has to be different. So I started at Merritt College. I'm from Oakland, so Merritt College is in Oakland, and I didn't have any idea of what I was going to major in. I just was like, I'm gonna just start with some basic classes, and I ended up getting an AA in sociology and administration of justice by the time it was all over with. And so I remember I was going to transfer to Cal State East Bay, because I remember I had a coworker. I was working at this men's shelter, and I had a coworker, and he was like, "Oh, you should apply to go to UC Berkeley." I'm like, "Oh no, I don't want to write 20 and 30-page papers. I want to write like five-page papers." I'm like, "I don't want to do all that work. I don't want to read 50 pages. I want to read 10 pages." And so then we had this, debate. He was like, "Well, no, you're gonna have a better, opportunities if you go to Berkeley." I'm like, "No, I'm not. I got the personality. I'm gonna just, get this, this degree from Cal State East Bay." No disrespect to Cal State East Bay, but it was just like, you know what? All right, I'm gonna go up to Berkeley and find out how much did it cost to go here, because I had no idea of the process of applying for UC Berkeley. And so I had decided I was just going to come up to Berkeley and walk into the admissions office and ask them, "Excuse me, can you tell me how much does it cost to go here?" And it was just, destined for me to be here, because as I came up here, I parked, and as I was walking past the Old Styles Hall, and I saw this sign on the door, and it said Native American Student Development Center. Native American Student Orientation, new student orientation. So I was like, oh, let me go in here and check this out. And I'm a citizen of the Muskogee Creek Nation tribe. And so I was like, let me, see if, any of my peoples is up in here or whatever, and, go in here and, holler at somebody. And so I met Miss Linda. She's in Styles Hall, and that was the first person I met. And, she just, was telling me about, well, first of all, I just asked her, I was like, excuse me, where's the admissions office? Because that was still my plan, was to go in there and ask them how much does it cost to go here. And so, she was still giving me directions, go down here, go up these stairs. I'm just like, okay, I'm going to find it somewhere. But then I had got enough courage to ask her about the orientation that was happening. And so when she, had told me about it. By that point, Dave, he's, if you guys been in Style Hall, Dave, Dave Stark. And so he was standing behind me at that time. And so she's like, take her up there to introduce her to everybody at the Native American Student orientation or whatever. And I was just like, no, I'm not ready to meet nobody. So he took me up there. I met Kenny. Kenny, I forgot his last name, but he was working with Experience Berkeley, yeah. And so it would just happen so fast. They were like, yeah, fill out this application for Experience Berkeley, because Underground Scholars, they didn't even have transfer coordinators when I was applying. So as we were filling out this application, it was I just got real nervous, because it was like, gosh, I got this felony, and I don't even know what to say or what to do. And I don't know if this felony is going to prevent me from getting accepted into Berkeley, because I had never spoke about being incarcerated. I never knew about street scholars. What is it, street scholars at Merritt College? Yeah, I never even knew about the program, because I never even spoke about being incarcerated or having a felony conviction. So because of all the stigma and everything that's associated with having that record. And so when I was asking Kenny when we were filling out the application, I just was like, let me find out now before we go any further. I have this felony conviction. Is this going to prevent me from getting accepted to Berkeley? And he was like, oh, well, we have this student program for formerly incarcerated students. And I was like, what, are you serious? And so he took me down, and I was just like, wow, this is amazing. I got to get in here. So he took me down. I met David Maldonado. He was on the film there, and he was the first person I met with Underground Scholars. And he just said, holler at us once you get accepted, because like I said, they didn't have the transfer coordinators during that at that time. And so of course in my statement I wrote about my experiences being incarcerated, and next thing I know, I got my acceptance letter, and hit up the Underground Scholars. Shalita was here already, so I had met her, and so she just kind of took me in and helped me with a lot of the different programs, and accessing different classes and whatnot. So that was my experience.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? My name is Jessie. This is my first semester. I'm a transfer from LA. Man, for me, school was never ingrained in my family. It was always working. But I didn't like to do all that hard labor. I always wanted the easy way out. So I was like, I gotta figure something out. I used to always go to my dad hey, let me get some money. He's like, I ain't got it. And I seen people always flashy, new phones, new clothes, new Jordans. I was always with hand-me-down Skechers, LA gear. And man, that impacted me. And it started off in elementary, just taking people's stuff. And then it gradually just kept going. I felt like I was natural at this, and I just started saying, this is what I'm gonna be doing, just hustling and just getting by and taking things. And that started becoming really ingrained in me, where it was if whatever I need, I'm just gonna take it. So I started hustling. I said, this is what I'm gonna do for the rest of my life. And like many hustlers in the streets, they feel that they have it all figured out, that they're gonna make a lot of money invested, and then, but not all the time it works out, until I came to understand that hustling was not what I was doing in the street, but it was more of a mentality, and I started losing friends at an early age. I lost my mom at 10. I lost my grandmother right after. My dad was hardly ever home. So it was just me in the streets, had to be my own individual. I had to learn things. I had to learn how to cook, everything, And I watch friends die in my hands, and it's like I'm starting to contemplate on my life, and it's like I'm either going to do a life sentence in prison or I'm going to end up dead in these streets, and I was okay with that. I began to normalize that. And it was not until 2015 where I just started losing friends back to back to back, and my house was being raided for multiple murders that they were looking for me for, and it was like, damn, there got to be more to life than just this, And people started to try to like invest their time in me, and I would always just like push them off and stuff. And there came to a point where it was just like, man, I'm just tired of this shit. It's the same thing. Like I have no direction. I don't know what I want to do with myself. And I gave school a shot, and I did good. I went in there with all the wrong intentions, like I'm gonna build a new clientele, this and that, and all my intentions were wrong. And I was like, well, free money, financial aid, shoot it, And then I started learning, like everything that I've been around, it's been an institution, like he had mentioned in the film, it's been an institution, and I know how to navigate life, and I know how to maneuver in the streets, and I know how to jam up whoever I need for something, And I started working in the education department at Homeboy Industries, and I started helping folks, enroll into college, pursue their educational goals, GED, high school diploma, and they would always ask me, like, what's up, homie? Like, you got your high school, you got your AA, you got your BA? I was like, nah, I just got my high school. Then why are you trying to put me into college for it? So then I started like thinking like I gotta practice what I preach, So I felt like the highest human act is to inspire somebody. So I started getting to college, and it started going well for me. I started learning about things, and then after times it started being like, damn, like sociology is tangible to my lived experiences. And then I hear like folks commenting on some like ignorant stuff, like, are you just like, damn, really? Like, you start evaluating your own life, and then you're like, damn, like who taught them that, But it's like we didn't all grow up the same, So then after I took it more serious, I graduated, and being in a lot of conferences, I met like other folks that are formerly incarcerated gang members, and I was like, what? Like they just did 20 years and they got their masters, this and that. So I just started like really taking it serious, like, that's something that I want to do with myself, because I couldn't fully understand like how I come from a lineage of indigenous folks that were so connected, but there's somewhere down the line we got disconnected, and we started being part of this patriarchal money, violence, and how did we get disconnected of this cycle of life where we were more than just that, we come from a lineage of intellectual folks, And then I started like really getting into speaking engagements, and I didn't really know what I was getting myself into. I was like, okay, cool, yeah, let's do it. And I would just go up there and just freestyle it, just speak, and then they're like, just keep it real. I was like, all right, cool. And I started seeing folks like Underground Scholars, and I would ask like, what gang is that? Or like, where they from, So I started like tripping out, like, who are they and shit. I'm from LA, you know what I mean? So it's like, oh, like, where they from and shit, So I'm over here trips, said tripping and shit. But I started asking, they're like, nah, they're homies that got this org and stuff. And then I remember being on a panel with David, and like I started hearing about the stuff he had to say. I was like, damn, that's cool. Then I started hearing other folks and other women like speaking out, and like, damn, like, that's stuff that I want to do, I want my life to be purposeful. So then I just went full force with it, and I applied to 4 UCs, and Father Greg, the founder of Homeboy Industries, he would always catch me, like, when my homies from our neighborhood would come, he's like, you gotta stop kicking it with them. You're not gonna make it to college if you keep kicking it with them. I said, those are my homies. And he'll just slap me in the head and stuff. And he dragged me in, and then he told me, like, I really want you to take this shit serious, like, and I kept telling him, yeah, I'll go to UCLA. Like, don't trip, I'll go to UCLA. He's like, hell no, you're not going to UCLA. You're going to take classes, go back to your neighborhood. It's not going to work out for you. He's like, I want you to get out of here. So when I got accepted to Berkeley, I said, man, that's faith right there. That's a sign that it was meant for me to go there, and I didn't get accepted to UCLA, so it was like, it was meant to be, and then he just started laughing at me. And, so then I came, and I got welcomed with open arms, and folks a community of individuals that look like me, speak like me, come from the same struggles, and that's what I want to be around, I want to be around folks that'll uplift you and tell you it's going to be all right, even though when shit gets tough, and it's real. And it's like, I don't have a problem with coming to an institution. I think the thing for me was that I never had a choice where I was going to go. It was more like you're getting transferred to this institution, and you just ride with it, When it became where I actually had a choice, that became the hard part, where like, damn, finally I have a choice in my life. So having folks right here where they're doing things and they want to help each other out, that's what moves me, and I want to be that individual that could provide hope for folks that feel like it's too late, but it's never too late, till your days are done, so I just want to be that individual that can do that for somebody, because I feel like it's important, Yeah.
So as you've heard from our students, it takes a lot more than intelligence to be an underground scholar. As Clarence said, it takes humility, it takes discipline, it takes courage, it takes audacity, it takes creativity. It takes a lot to be an underground scholar, especially at a place like UC Berkeley. So I want to give it up one more time for all of the underground scholars on the panel, and all of the underground scholars in the audience, and all of the underground scholars statewide and in the prisons and the community colleges. As I said when we opened this is a movement. What I'm so excited about is seeing what this is gonna look like when you do the 10-year revisiting. I feel like every student in our program is a portal for transformation, not only for themselves, but for their children. You heard Lanika talk about being a mother. A lot of our students are mothers and fathers, and are raising children that are growing up at UC Berkeley on a college campus, and their lives are going to be a lot different than the lives of our current underground scholars. They're also portals of transformation for the communities that they return to. For our state, a lot of them are doing policy work. Daniela didn't mention it because she's too humble, but she testified as an expert witness in a bill that we were working on last year. One of our other students, Amina, testified as an expert witness. Our policy fellows this year are going to be doing that. They're working on actually changing the laws that implement so many of these barriers for currently and formerly incarcerated students. So it's a movement. We're looking forward to what the world is going to look like in the next 5, 10, 15, 20, 50 years once our students are out there in the world doing their thing. So yeah, give it up one more time, and then we're gonna get into Q&A. So I don't know if yes. I don't know how it's working with the mics, but we have some time for Q&A. So if you have questions for any of our panelists, great. Raise your hands.
Yeah, I have a comment and then a question. Several people on the panel, Jessie and others, mentioned lived experience, people with lived experience. And I actually think that I'm from Tennessee. I have a lot of networking in the South, and I'm seeing that networks of people with lived experience of various types, those are growing. And I think they're really a positive force for change in this country. On college campuses, I mean, if you look at the veterans, veterans were people who had lived experience with military services. People with, came to college with lived experiences with physical disabilities, medical issues. I myself am someone who's part of networks of people with mental health and substance abuse recovery issues. So the Underground Scholars, I mean, you all are really working in, giving voice and giving representation to people with lived experience with incarceration. And it's a really positive and beautiful example. But it also builds on other layers. And so I think if we think about it like that, it can kind of strengthen the sense of history that you all are adding to. So my question is California, are the universities of California planning to export this model or share this model with other states? Has that started to happen? If not, I think it would really be a positive thing to send out from California to other states in the country, including mine.
Yep, thanks for your question. And thank you for acknowledging the work that's already been done by formerly incarcerated people to center their leadership. The things that you're seeing right now, or the ways that you're seeing space being made for formerly incarcerated leaders, was not the case 10, 15, 20 years ago. It's really because of the leadership of formerly incarcerated people and them pushing philanthropy, academia, nonprofit world to center their leadership. And that's been a fight. It's not something that was easy for them to do. So shout out to the movement elders who have been paving that road for us for a really long time. In terms of sharing the model, we're really focused more on sharing our model within California right now, prioritizing like spreading it throughout the entire UC system. We do get hit up by colleges in other states, and I do consult with them and like offer them whatever insight I can give them. So we do see that the model is spreading. I'm looking forward to the day where our students can do some more, and this is starting with Dr. Harding's policy cohort, starting to develop their own research and evaluations of our program and sharing that. They are the experts. They created this. They're running the programs. They're experiencing the programs. So I hope we do more to support them in producing the knowledge about how this can be shared out and what are the best practices. Other questions?
So I keep hearing policy up here, and one of the issues, like when we got to speak in front of faculty and the sheriffs, like all of them at the end, like basically looked at us and like, how can we help you?
Mm-hmm.
Like we have the support of our school, and like a lot of us here, like I had a 4.0 and I have 60 units, 4.0 until I took statistics over the summer. I had a B, right? But we can't work at our college. Like they won't let us do work study because we have felonies. Is that the same here? Is that statewide? Is that just that school?
That's that school, and you should shame them. If you should try to meet with administrators and see if they'll change their policy, and if not, you should shame them.
Okay, so
and we'll help you because that should not.
Okay.
That's happening at a lot of community colleges. Shout out to the students at Berkeley Undergrounds Scholars who helped ban the box on the UC application. That was the students here that did that. We are working on legislation to ban the box on all college applications, and that's for admissions, not for employment. UC Berkeley's team worked on banning the box for employment applications in the UC system. Sorry, we're working on policy this year to ban the box on admissions applications, mostly in private colleges because the UC and Cal States don't have it. But those policy efforts are kind of underway too. I'll connect you with some people that are working on that, and we can talk about it. It's definitely an issue at the community colleges.
Okay, and this might be useful for a lot of people, but I was just a staff writer on our school paper last year. Mm-hmm. I'm the editor now, right? And so like I have a platform, so I definitely could shame if I wanted.
Yes, do that.
What has been like the biggest challenges in terms of trying to expand? Like what barriers are you bumping into? Would y'all be able to like elaborate on that as far as from a student perspective and like an administrative sort of perspective for the people one time?
Expand statewide?
Yeah, like just expanding, period. Like
Lack of funding. I mean, I think everybody kind of assumes that UC Berkeley gives us all this money and they don't. So like having a lot of lack of funding, that's why a lot of the students are doing so much of the work. And work study is like 10 hours a week supposed to be, but this USI members do well over 10 hours of work study, not, on the weekends and the evenings. And that's not even to include stuff we're doing, not for the program, but just for like our formerly incarcerated friends, or like people refer us formerly incarcerated people all the time who we help, with peer support that has nothing to do with like the school yet, because they just need support. So I think that we definitely could benefit from like more funding to pay people more, to get more people to do the work, and to stipend more formerly incarcerated people, for sure.
Other thoughts on that? No. I think the challenge has been the funding, and not really having the support from the university. Like even our space, like we rent space from Stiles Hall, very affordable. Thank you, Stiles Hall. And our students can like use that space and meet in that space, but Stiles Hall isn't big enough for us to have a meeting with all of our students at this point. We're outgrowing Stiles Hall. It doesn't have the classroom space that we need for the policy fellowship and the other classes that we're doing. So we really need space. We really need the campus to invest in creating a climate on campus where formerly incarcerated students can feel safe and can feel where they belong, because we don't have that at any UC yet. So that's a big fight for us. I think one of the biggest biggest blessings, I guess, in doing the statewide expansion is the strength of leadership and just motivation that the formerly incarcerated students at the other UCs have. We had our first statewide convening in August, and just the momentum and energy around like building out system-wide has been incredible. And as Daniela said, they're all doing it on their own time. Those students aren't even work study students yet. They're just student org leaders who are really helping to build statewide infrastructure that's going to support thousands of currently and formerly incarcerated students. So I think there's more of that stuff than there are the challenges. I feel like with the team that we have and the momentum that we have, we're going to overcome the funding barriers very soon, and we're going to grow regardless.
Hi, I'm Sammy. I'm a formerly incarcerated member of USI. I also just wanted to mention that the work that we do is really emotionally laborious. Thank you. Hi, I'm Sammy. I just also wanted to comment that the work that we do is like really emotionally laborious, right? And like people don't really take that into consideration when we do it, and there's so few of us that like there's not enough of us to share the load, right? So I think one of the things that we could do is just to like infiltrate the school, right? We need more formerly incarcerated people to show up so that we can share that emotional load. That was just my comment. Okay, bye.
Similar, but yeah. I have a question for the scholars. I'm just wondering, like, what was the adjustment period like when you first came to Berkeley? What were some of the barriers you faced? And also, like, what do you wish you knew before coming here?
So the adjustment for me was kind of difficult because I had done my whole education, my AA, while I was incarcerated. So I was able to, it's very different, obviously. And I guess like interacting in class, a lot of these classes there are participation points. And I didn't feel and still don't feel fully ready to participate with everybody and talk with everybody. And I think that like, unless you know me, then you're not going to understand that. So coming into these classes and these spaces, they think, oh, everybody get into a group and talk. And a lot of the time you're talking about like your history. And I don't feel comfortable sharing that with everybody. And like, I don't have like this long history. My history is like 5 years that I've been home. So like every conversation having to navigate around what I'm sharing and what to talk about. And it sometimes boils down to making stuff up just because it's like, oh, what were you doing during that World Series? I was like, oh, I was watching it from myself. So it's like, oh, how do I navigate these conversations? So just things like that. And then just also being in, we talked about it earlier, like these spaces being kind of violent. I mean, they are extremely violent in some cases. So being in class and people saying really problematic things or saying like, these felons and why should they, and like having to decide if I'm going to comment or pass. So that still comes up to, still comes up to this day. So there's definitely, I mean, we all experience triggers, but I feel like for this to be UC Berkeley, we have such a long way to go. That's it.
So I would say one of the biggest challenges for me, like transitioning here, was just because I had been out of school for a while. I'm a reentry student, so I'm 42 years old. I'm not afraid to say that, but so I had been out of school for a while, and then on top of that, I had got my GED. So it had been some time before I had between my GED and coming to school. And so like Daniela said, a lot of times I don't feel, like those conversations in the classrooms are relevant to me and my life experiences. And but I would say the greatest challenge that I experienced being here as a student is when I come to campus, when I set foot on campus, I have to leave my home environment, where it's at, and kind of like transform to student mode. So like I had mentioned before, my daughter, she was a sexually exploited minor, so she's still in that life. So just to be able to balance and juggle situations that arise, like my third semester here, my daughter was facing 25 years in Baltimore in prison, so I had to deal with finals and advocating for her as a victim of, being sexually exploited. So just to carry those experiences and to still have to deal with those experiences and deal with finals and midterms and professors, that's my biggest challenge.
Yeah, for me, it's like, man, I'm in it right now, knee deep. Being from SoCal, come over here, I'm like, damn, I'm getting no love. And I was like, it's cool. It's probably, let me just thug it out, write it out. And then, bam, another thing happens. I'm like, damn, it can't be this bad. Then another thing happens, bam, it can't be this bad. And then you start encountering, like, imposter syndrome. And then, like, the majority of students here are white. And then it's like, damn, like, being tattooed, and then the way I dress, it's like a given, like he's like a hoodlum or he's from, and then sometimes you get like some weird questions like, oh, what does that tattoo on your head say? Or like, what does that say on your face? Or like, what's this? And it's like, things that I don't feel like even like talking about, and then there's a lot of things on campuses that trigger me, I catch myself already like being institutionalized all over again, coming down to like, man, like rent's even expensive. And it's like, man, I don't want to be in these co-ops no more because it's starting to be like triggering. I've been indoctrinated to like, you wake up early at 6, you do your bed, you eat, you conduct yourself a certain way. And now you're around like young folks that are like, everybody did everything for them. The trash is everywhere. The restrooms are looking shitty. The shower's looking shitty. Now I want to fight everybody. Like, damn, like, you don't understand where I come from. Like, you get stabbed or beat up for shit like this, So then it just starts becoming triggering. And I'm like, I got to be like, chill, Jessie. Like, calm down, you know what I mean? And then I'm in a room where it's like, I'm grateful that I even have a place to sleep in. But, man, this room is all white. Like, I'm closed in by myself. And it's like, damn, I'm in a cell. You feel me? And it's trying to get out of that, you know what I mean? So I just catch myself just chilling in school, chilling in the multicultural center, like at Stiles Hall. And that's like my sanctuary. I just kick it there till 7, go home and just knock out. So I don't got to deal with nobody like that. It'll be little things, people whistling, and I'm turning around like, you know what I mean? Sometimes it'll be like flickering of light that I'm like, oh shit, and my PTSD starts kicking in. Now I'm calling my therapist, like, so like these institutions were never equipped for folks like us, and then it's like when we need these resources, they're being like long lines of folks that really don't even need this, and you're just like taking up space, and it's like at this point it's just everything. Like my studies, like I know how to apply myself. I've been through so much shit, it's like I could apply myself. It just starts becoming like acclimating to a new culture, you know, especially to this sink or swim culture of Berkeley, you know. And I'm just in the premise of this, you know. I'm not even at midterms yet, you know. So it's like, you know, and then having to deal with the issues back home because I don't know nobody out here. It's like at times I feel like I'm on my own, but then I do got individuals that, you know, I chop it up with, but I'm like a big provider at home, you know. Living that lifestyle that I was living, they got used to me just, oh yeah, you need it, like here you go, don't trip, here's the rent, here's this and that. So it's like I get texts like we're struggling at home, my brother just got run over like a few days ago. So, you know, it's like I'm trying to concentrate, but then I still like I'm in the midst of things, you know, and it's hard to juggle. And I think one of the hardest things is trying to find that balance, you know, because oftentimes we get lost inside of that, and we got to learn to ground ourselves. So it's always like moral inventory and like checking myself, but it's tough when you come into a space that's not really ready to accommodate individuals that come from our population, you know. So it's a little bit of everything at this point, you know.
I'll add to that. Jessie talked about a lot of the students talked about a lot of the internal challenges, but there's still a lot of external UC created challenges. Our students are still getting profiled and harassed by other students, by faculty, by police. They're still being asked, why are you in this building? Who are you? Let me see your ID. Not just on this campus, but on other campuses. So it's still not fully normal or acceptable to have underground scholars on any UC campus. As much as we celebrate this program, their experiences aren't as reflective as this bright, shiny thing that we're seeing all the time. They're doing this despite a lot of these things that they're experiencing while they're here. Other questions? Do we have time for more questions?
Hey everyone, I just want to start by like expressing my deepest gratitude to you for sharing and like building on your note. You're like, this is emotional labor. Like I feel that weight. I'm walking out of here with weight, and I want to thank you for that weight that you were bringing to my life. And I've been thinking about, you know, like what is freedom but the freedom to choose how we want to feel. And so I want to know for each of you, like, how do you want to feel? Like leaving here tonight and tomorrow, and also in recognition of your labor and of the capital which you have invested into me and to other members of this room, the intellectual and emotional capital and labor, you know, what is the capital that would facilitate you being able to feel that feeling that you want to feel? And if it requires financial capital, what's your Venmo handle? Or if it's social or political or culture or whatever kind of capital it is, like there are people in this room right now who are full of you and are walking out with the weight of you inside of them. And I think I know I want to show my appreciation, and I think probably there's other people in this room who want to show that appreciation too.
Don't be shy with those Venmo handles.
I'm going to share my Venmo handle. But I think I really appreciate that so much, like, because I don't think people understand how much, like, we tell our stories and talk about it. And when we leave up out of here, like, to be honest, we're going to leave here and we're going to go home, and that we're going to think about everything we talked about, and it's going to sit there for like a week. So I really want to honor, like, thank you so much for honoring and appreciating that, because we spend so much time, and we do this not because we want our stories to be heard or we want to feel important. We're doing this so that other people like homie in the back can know about us and be like, you know what, I'm going to be at UC Berkeley. So, you know, it does take a lot. So I do want to honor all the, you know, formerly incarcerated people who do share their stories, because it's not like just a share their story. It's not all bubbly, you know, it's not all good. You know, it comes with a lot of trauma that this school has made my trauma much worse than it was when I was just having a job, to be honest. And that's another story. So thank you. I do appreciate that. And I hope that everybody takes that with them whenever they do go to other spaces and formerly incarcerated people are sharing their story. And
one more question here.
Yeah, I'm going to get it right now.
Oh.
Go ahead. We're both from the same place, so it's all good. My name's Jeremy. I'm the president of Ascending Scholars from Butte College. And we got to do that. First of all, I just want to thank everybody for being here, everybody for inviting us to come up here, and everybody on the panel and in the film. Thank you very much. So I just have one question. As a fledgling club up there in Chico. I just want to ask you guys, like, being a part of this club, like, how have you benefited the most being a part of this program, Underground Scholars? Just because we're kind of trying to figure our way as we go forward, as we move forward, like, how do we best support each other and move forward through the college, through our own lives, and navigate this whole system? How do we support one another as best we can? So that's what I'm asking you. Like, how have you guys benefited the most being a part of this program? If you wouldn't mind answering that.
Okay, I can start. I would say the most that I've benefited was just by being comfortable with the experience and being able to put words to those experiences and to be able to talk about them. And then just having Underground Scholars as a supportive community for me, it just has helped with my professional development, for me to even be able to speak about these things, for me to even get educated about my own experiences so that I can educate other people who, are experiencing the same situations or living, or currently living the life. Like, even when I talk to my daughter, she'll brag and she'll be like, "Oh yeah, I was telling my friends I'm experiencing she calls it a secondhand UC Berkeley education." So I'm like, yeah, she's just to even see her saying, looking at her, seeing her having a hand-me-down education is what she calls it. But that right there is one of my major benefits.
Is reinforcing everybody cultural capital, like you come in here already having a set of skills, and it's utilizing that and empowering each other, telling each other some affirmative things, like you matter, like you belong to be here, you deserve to be here, and creating allies. I think the biggest thing, it's that folks in here have creative allies that you could go to and reach out to. Because one of the biggest things is that pride and that ego that create barriers for our own self. Sometimes we're our own worst enemy, because we put that wall in the front, and it's like, I'll do it what I do it on your own terms type thing. And it's like, if I can't do it, you know what I mean? Reach out to somebody that could help you out. And sometimes you might not know everything, and the smartest thing or probably the wisest thing you could tell somebody is I don't know, but let's figure this out together, So it's picking off of everybody, and like they say in Spanish, unidos somos poderosos, together we're powerful, and your presence is resistance, So, just coming together and creating that pathway for other folks, and knowing that there's a deeper thing than just you and me, that it's a us thing, a we thing, and you're just setting the stone for the next to come. So it's essential to create that foundation, because once you have that foundation, they can't knock that shit down, and you're the ones that are going to be able to do that at your campus, and when someone's down, pick them up, and, how it is, that street mentality. These are transferable skills that you could apply into these institutions, and just remembering that you matter and your voice matters, and you got to be at those tables where these decisions are being made that affect your student experience, but at the end of the day, you got this.
I would just say, don't lose sight of the mission. Whatever the mission is on your campus, I know for us, it's the prison to university pipeline. I mean, it's just to support formerly incarcerated people getting here. And I think that we talk about the good stuff, but we bump heads a lot. The student org, we bump heads a lot. Mm-hmm. We all have strong personalities, and I've been in USI for 3 years, and we get into it and we say problematic things, and there's a lot of funk and even near gonna fight, but because we're all very passionate about what we're doing, and I think that everyone has quit USI already and have come back several times. It's real, and I think that what keeps us coming back is that we're not here for us, and we're not even really here. We're here for each other for sure, because I would not be here if it wasn't for like everybody else. I would not be here, like I wouldn't make it. But what keeps us coming back is that we're not doing this for us no more. Like, we're doing it for the people that are coming behind us. So just never lose sight of that mission or that goal, and y'all be all right.